In this Scoundrel guide, we're going to talk about how to really make the Scoundrel excel, how to do some really cool things. So the Scoundrel, it's a high single target damage class. It really excels at doing a lot of damage in bursts to single targets. So we're going to talk about how you can really make that happen. At level 1, without items, the Scoundrel can do over 50 damage. But the Scoundrel is actually quite hard to play, and you're always at risk because you're going so fast and you're in the front lines and you've got really high initiative. You're always at risk of being a target. And the Scoundrel requires a ton of positioning and, really thinking through where you're going to be and what the monster actions are going to be. So stick around. I'm going to show you exactly how to use the Scoundrel. Before we get into that though, just go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications so that when I create new content, you're notified. In this video, we're going to be talking about positioning. We're going to be talking about exhausting too early and how to mitigate that. We're going to be talking about some really neat starting card combos and also a couple of fairly cheap enhancements that are going to take your Scoundrel game way up. And then we're going to be talking about perks and making sure that we don't take the wrong perks. Positioning with the Scoundrel is key. The Scoundrel has insanely fast initiative, and also a lot of your attacks and your most effective attacks for the most part are going to be melee. So you're going to be in the front and you're going to be going faster than everybody else. So you've got to be really careful that you're not always the focus of monster attacks. So what you want to do is if you're moving in, you want to make sure and move in on a side that is going to be away from all of the monsters, so that if you are taking aggro, you only want to be taking it from 1 or 2 monsters. You don't want to go in and have all 4 of the monsters focus on you. So make sure you're somewhat coordinated with your team and you know whether or not they're going to be moving in or not. And that's key. If they're all going to be hanging back doing ranged attacks and you move in, all the monsters are going to suck in onto you and they're going to do way too much damage. And the Scoundrel isn't weak, but she's also not tough. So make sure you're thinking about that. Move around to the sides, move around to the back. And if you're already in front, if you're already next adjacent to some monsters, you can always attack and then move out of position because you're going to be going faster than, the majority of monsters and your allies. You also want to use invisibility to your advantage. So you're going to use a Cloak of Invisibility. No spoilers here. That's a Prosperity level 1 item. And so you're going to want to use invisibility from your cards or from an item at times when you feel like the aggro is going to be directed against you. Say you've made a mistake or just for whatever reason it's the most effective play. Make sure you're holding that invisibility, as a get out of jail free card. A lot of your cards also rely on monsters being adjacent to you or not being adjacent to you. So make sure you're really watching that so that you maximize the effectiveness of cards like Flanking Strike. The Scoundrel is really powerful, but to pull off some big combos, you're going to need to exhaust cards. So you're going to have to be very careful about when you pull those off, and we'll talk about that later. But for now, let's talk about the exhaust portion. So I see online a lot of people talking about big combos, and they're doing Smoke Bomb and Single Out on turn 1, the bottom of Single Out and the top of Smoke Bomb, and then next turn they're doing Backstab. That is 3 cards you're going to lose. You can never do this. Don't ever do this. You want to use Smoke Bomb and something like Sinister Opportunity next instead of Backstab, and then use that dark, and it very often is going to be as powerful and you're not going to be losing a card. And it's very important that you don't use more than 1 or 2 losses with the Scoundrel. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of trouble making it to the end of the scenario. Looting is another piece where you don't want to exhaust cards to loot. You've got a card like Swift Bow, and we'll talk about, enhancements on that later on, but Swift Bow, you can move and loot at the same time. And so don't ever use any of your loot cards where it's going to be a loss, because you want to save those losses for your big combos. And really, Smoke Bomb and Single Out is probably the most you want to lose. You should be rarely playing another loss if you're playing those 2. So a really cool combo is going to be Smoke Bomb and Sinister Opportunity. Because Sinister Opportunity isn't a loss, and because it becomes more powerful with Dark, it's really great to use Smoke Bomb the turn before. And you can use a bottom attack with Smoke Bomb, or you can use something like Single Out to make your attacks later on more powerful. But you're going to use Smoke Bomb, and then the next turn you're going to use Sinister Opportunity. And with Sinister Opportunity, it also gives you the option of going late the next round if you want to make sure that monsters aren't focusing on you. So you go early with Smoke Bomb and you do whatever, you go invisible. The next turn you can go late with Sinister Opportunity, and then you won't get focused on, and you can go late and fast. And essentially 3 turns in a row, you're not going to be taking any aggro from the monsters. Our next combo is going to be Smoke Bomb and Trickster's Reversal. Use Trickster's Reversal after Smoke Bomb if you have an enemy that has shield 3 or greater, and this is going to be a huge combo for you. Thief's Knack is not really as good as it appears. Don't get me wrong, it's still a reasonably solid card, but it's not great. And the Scoundrel really needs to position properly, and so sitting still and using a bottom attack should only be used when you can actually burst damage, kill a monster before it attacks, and it doesn't leave you in a bad position. Swift Bow is another great card. Because the Scoundrel goes so fast, it's easy to get loot, and it's really nice when you can move and loot, and you're going to be able to move and loot through each hex with Swift Bow. Just before we go any further, Swift Bow in the picture here is move 4. Yes, in the very first copies of Gloomhaven, Swift Bow was a move 4 loot every hex. It was super ridiculous. It is move 2 now, but it's still a really great card. So make sure you're taking that card with you so that you can collect a bunch of loot, which the Scoundrel is really good at doing. I hope you're really liking this Scoundrel guide so far. If you could right now, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and turn on notifications so that when I make new content, you're notified. And also, I do have a lot of opinions, and so I've created a video where I've ranked all 22 Gloomhaven classes. And this includes original Gloomhaven, and it includes Forgotten Circles and Jaws of the Lion. So go and check it out and see where your favorite characters lie and how they stack up against the rest of the classes in the Gloomhaven universe. Coming up, I'm going to go through each level of the Scoundrel and talk through both of the cards that you can choose and, give you some recommendations on which card is best and why. And then after that, we're going to go through the enhancements and we're going to go through the perks. So stick around. Some of the perks we're not going to take because they're actually not going to help us very much with the Scoundrel. At level 2, we've got Flintlock and we've got Open Wound. Flintlock is a decent top loot. Top loot is better than bottom loot, but I hate, sacrificing an attack to do a top loot. So make sure the scenario is in good shape before you do that. Don't be too selfish and just take all the loot. And then the bottom is good for burst damage. A bottom attack is good for bursting with a top attack. So fairly solid utility. And Flintlock, you would only use it later game because you have to be really careful about exhausting with the Scoundrel. An Open Wound, the top is good. It's going to be as good as Flanking Strike most of the time right away. So you're going to go fast with the Scoundrel. You're going to attack. The monster's going to take its turn. It's going to wound. That's going to be 5 damage. So it's going to be, better than something like Flanking Strike. And it will usually output more damage. The bottom is a solid move. So I'm going to say take Open Wound most of the time. At level 3, we've got Duelist Advance and we've got Hidden Daggers. The top of Duelist Advance is great utility. It's move 3, attack 3. It's basically a better version of the Mind Thief's Scurry. So I really like that. And then the bottom you can combine with something like Throwing Knives. And if they're not adjacent to any of their allies, then you can do some pretty big damage with a multi-target attack. And then Hidden Daggers, the top is a decent ranged attack, but it's for a loss. And because there's some other cards we're usually going to want to use as losses, I don't think you very often want to take that. But the bottom is quite good. The Invisible is great for you staying close and getting yourself out of trouble. And so I think you can really take either, although I'd probably lean more towards Duelist Advance just because of that top move 3, attack 3. It's really good. At level 4, we've got Flurry of Blades and we've got Gruesome Advantage. Flurry of Blades is just a straight upgrade to Throwing Knives and it's pretty good. The bottom is a move 4 with advantage on all of your attacks this round. It's really, really good. High move, advantage. The Scoundrel likes to do big turns, so having advantage is really, really advantageous. Yes, I'm saying it. It's really advantageous to have that advantage. And then we've got Gruesome Advantage. There's a lot of advantage in this video right now. Gruesome Advantage is just a straight upgrade to Backstab, but it's a loss. I still prefer to use Sinister Opportunity with Smoke Bomb. It just synergizes so well and you don't have to lose a card, and it really helps with longevity. So for this, I'm going to take Flurry of Blades just because that bottom move and advantage is such great utility, and the top is also pretty good as well, and I think you're going to use it a lot. At level 5, we've got Visage of the Inevitable, and we've got Call the Weak. Visage of the Inevitable is a great repeatable insta-kill. And for utility, pair it with Smoke Bomb bottom until you use it for the top to, maneuver enemies around. Or you can pair it with the bottom of Sinister Opportunity. Next, we've got Call the Weak. The top is a straight upgrade to Flanking Strike and Single Out. The bottom looks good and you think, 6 attacks with +2 damage to each. It's 12 damage for a loss. That should be pretty good overall in the Gloomhaven, sphere, right? It's actually not that good because, it's for enemies that have Disarm, Immobilize, or Stun. Let's say you've got 4 enemies. You stun 2 and you've got 2 left. Generally, you want to focus on the ones that are not stunned to take them out so they're not attacking you and leave the stunned ones. And so lots of times you actually don't want to be attacking stunned or disarmed or immobilized enemies because they've already been taken care of. And to minimize damage, you want to take out the guys that are still kicking. So in this case, definitely go with Visage of the Inevitable. It is vastly superior to Call the Weak. At level 6, we have Burning Oil and we have Crippling Poison. Burning Oil is a decent range top attack, and the bottom loot too is pretty good at times. I mean, it feels good to use it. The initiative is super slow, which actually for the Scoundrel is handy if you want to go late. And the next we've got Crippling Poison. The top is quite powerful when specifically built for. The bottom is decent utility. You can immobilize the enemy and then move away. So it's really nice when you're in close and you go fast, you attack, you immobilize a melee enemy, you move out of position. That's going to neutralize that melee enemy and make sure that they don't follow you. So for that, I'm taking Crippling Poison most of the time, although it's not drastically better than Burning Oil. Level 7, we've got 2 really good cards. We've got Stick to the Shadows and we've got Spring the Trap. Stick to the Shadows top is great with a backstab and pairs perfect with Smoke Bomb. And it could replace Sinister Opportunity at this point in time because 8 damage, you're not going to be able to consistently output 8 damage with Sinister Opportunity. And then the bottom move to Invisible is really good for getting out of trouble. Spring the Trap is also a great card. At higher levels, enemies tend to have a lot of shields, and so traps ignore shields. And so you can, do good damage to heavily shielded enemies. And then the bottom is a double damage attack again, similar to Smoke Bomb. Very good utility. Very good, single target damage. And so at level 7, it's a really tough to pick. And I would say go with whatever makes sense for your current build. At level 8, we take a bit of a dip here in quality of cards. We've got Stiletto Storm and Pain's End. Stiletto Storm is decent for a level 8 card. Against shielded enemies is going to be awful, but against non-shielded enemies, it can be fairly good. The bottom, move for Retaliate. You don't really want to be getting hit with the Scoundrel, so it's not that great. It's okay in certain situations. Pain's End, the top is fine, but healing's not really what you're about. So, once in a while in an emergency, it's going to be useful to keep you alive. And then the bottom move 3, you can kill a shielded enemy. You can kill any enemy that's at 3 hit points or less, but it's going to be more useful against an enemy that has high shields. You're going to go in and just be able to kill them. At level 8, I'm probably taking neither of these, and I'm going back and picking the other level 7 card that you haven't taken. At level 9, we've got Long Con and Watch It Burn. Long Con is a legendary card. It's one of the best cards in the game. It's top 5 card. Attack 4 and then disarm all adjacent enemies. If you've got a little bit of push-pull with you, you can move enemies around a little bit and make sure lots are adjacent to you. This is absolutely a game-breaking card because you can use it over and over and over again and just disarm entire rooms and completely neutralize the monsters. Don't ever use this for the bottom. Just kidding. If you have to, go ahead. But you should almost never be using this bottom. It's not nearly as good as the top. And then Watch It Burn is also quite a powerful card. When adding poison and wound to all your attacks, you can really output some good damage. So if you do take Watch It Burn over Long Con, you might be a little bit crazy. But if you do, because you feel like, getting an alternate build out there at the Scoundrel and you've already used Long Con or something like that, Watch It Burn can be really cool with all of your different knife cards because you're hitting a bunch of different enemies. And in that case, it can be quite powerful. The move 5 wound at the bottom, it's pretty good utility. I mean, a move 5 wound is a powerful card. So Scoundrel has great level 9 cards. I think Long Con is actually quite a bit more powerful than Watch It Burn. But Watch It Burn, if you build right, can be really fun and output a lot of damage. Okay, let's talk about enhancements. But just quickly, if you've made it this far, please go ahead and like the video. So my first really cool enhancement is adding a strengthen to the top of Smoke Bomb. Yeah, strengthen at the top of Smoke Bomb. That means that when you pull off your big play, you're never going to miss. And we'll talk about perks and why you won't miss later, but you're never going to miss on your big attack after Smoke Bomb because you're going to strengthen, and strengthen actually lasts this turn and the next turn. And so if you go quick with Smoke Bomb, you can get 2 turns of having advantage on all of your attacks. Next is going to be Swift Bow. If you add +1 move to Swift Bow and you're moving 3 and looting, you're going to be able to collect a ton of loot. You're going to be able to buy a lot of items with all of that loot, and that's really going to help make you powerful. And it's also going to fund any further enhancements that you want to do. Perks for the Scoundrel are a bit one-sided, and I'll explain what I mean. So the Scoundrel likes to do big damage single turn plays. We've got Smoke Bomb, we've got Spring the Trap, and so we want to make sure that on these big plays we don't miss. When you have rolling modifiers in your deck, there's a greater chance you're going to miss. So here's the example. You pull 1 card on advantage, it's a +1, no problem. You pull the next one, it's rolling. Next one's rolling, next one's rolling, next one's rolling. You roll through, you pull a miss, you add them all together, but the miss takes precedence. It's a bit of a weird rule in Gloomhaven and one that a lot of people get wrong. But essentially, having rolling modifiers in your Scoundrel deck means your big attacks are going to miss more than it would normally. And so stay away from the rolling modifiers. Get rid of your -1s. Get rid of your 0s, add your +2, and get rid of the +0. Take all of those before you take any of the rolling modifiers. If you are going to take one of the rolling modifiers, take the add 1 invisible. So for items, we're just going to talk about Prosperity 1. There will be no spoilers here. One thing I always like to take with the Scoundrel is Cloak of Invisibility. Just because the Scoundrel requires so much skill in positioning and because you're doing a lot of melee and you're going fast, you just want that Cloak of Invisibility there to get you out of trouble when you need it. And then the next is Wing Shoes. You have lots of high move and you need to position a lot as a Scoundrel. You want to be able to make sure that, enemies that aren't blocking you from properly positioning. Take those Wing Shoes so you can jump over them and get into the right position. And then we've got a Piercing Bow. Take the Piercing Bow if you're using the knife attacks. Because the knife attacks are so weak and they're multi-target, take that Piercing Bow to help those out. If you're not using the knife attacks, Piercing Bow is not great for you. Next is Minor Stamp. Scoundrel struggles with exhausting, and so take that Minor Stamp for some increased longevity. If you could, go ahead now, like the video, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so that as I make new content, you're notified, and thank you so much for watching the video.